In this video, I'm going to go through the top weapons for each class when looking at only the vanilla content of the game. I know some people don't have access to the DLCs, and somebody did actually ask me on my Discord a couple of weeks ago what weapons would be suitable for someone who doesn't have the DLC and is looking to optimize their loadout. Now, some of these weapons will be very familiar, maybe some of you are using them anyway, even if you do have the DLC, but if you are stuck in a position where you don't have access to the additional content, this is a very useful video for you. We'll go through the Medic, Assault, Support and Scout class, showcasing my favourite weapon for the vanilla portion of the game, and then a couple of alternatives if they don't really take your fancy. Starting with the Medic class, I would say my favourite gun in the vanilla section of the game is the 1907 Trench or Factory, a 300 RPM, 42 maximum damage, accurate weapon at close range. The 1907 is a very decent choice for anyone who wants to be an aggressive run and gun medic. With a reload of 3.5 seconds and 2.3 seconds when bullets are remaining, you will be able to stay on the offensive for large portions of the game. One thing I would say about the trench variant of this weapon is that it is a very decent hipfire weapon, something that a lot of people do enjoy on Battlefield 1. Having a weapon that can hipfire at those close ranges and be accurate all the time is really important, and the 1907 Trench really excels in that regard. As you can see from the gameplay in the background, it is also very decent at those mid-range engagements due to the 3-bullet kill that you will get up to 38 meters. That is incredibly powerful, and I would say that both the Trench and the Factory benefit from this the most. With the Factory, you're going to be taking on people at close range, of course, and then benefit from that mid-range damage that this weapon will do, but with the Trench, you can pretty much do the same, but you benefit from a bit of extra hipfire. I would recommend going with the Trench variant with this weapon. My other pick for the non-DLC medic weapons would be the auto-loading 8.25. The 8.35 was a great gun before the TTK 2.0 changes. Now, I don't really think it does anything better than any of the other longer range weapons. It's okay, but it really does hold you back as you have to hit your shots. And for a lot of people, that is not the best weapon for them. The 8.25 has been a favourite of mine for ages. It does benefit from a higher fire rate than the 1907 and significantly less recoil, but just can't match the 1907's damage output. The 1907 also benefits from a larger magazine compared to the 8.25, and assuming you went with the Trench variant, you'll get really manageable hipfire spread, as I mentioned before. For close range blasting, both of these weapons are really good, and even if you venture into mid-range engagements, they can still hold their water. Run with a revolver as your secondary. Now we're going to move on to the Assault. For me, there is still one king of the vanilla portion of the game when looking at the Assault class, and that has to be the Hel Regal. Now, I know there are a couple of other weapons that you could pick, and I'll get into that in a minute, but just hear me out on the Hel Regal. Although it has been nerfed, it is still a very versatile weapon. 650 rounds per minute, 26.5 maximum damage, a half decent reload at just around 4 seconds whether you got bullets left or a completely empty magazine, and of course a strong 5-bullet kill up to 22 meters, meaning with that fire rate you're going to be taking down enemies very quickly. What I would say though is it is incredibly easy to handle and versatile, as I mentioned. Mid-range, you will be okay at spraying down enemies, but close range you can either hipfire or ADS and take out pretty much anybody in the game. Also, considering that you have 60 rounds in a mag, you're going to be taking on multiple enemies at once, which is often a situation you find yourself in BF1. Sometimes when running a gun like the 1900 Slug, I know it's not a vanilla weapon, but with those 2 shots, you're going to be in a situation where you can only take 2 enemies down and then you have to reload, and that often results in you getting taken down if your positioning isn't on point. The Hel Regal is far more forgiving in that regard and lets you stay on the offensive for longer. I would argue that the MP18 Trench is a weapon that you could pick up instead of the Hel Regal, and with recent nerfs, the Hel Regal certainly isn't the beast it used to be. However, the high fire rate, large magazine and easy to manage vertical recoil still leaves this weapon as a favourite amongst those players that don't have access to the DLC. If the Hel Regal isn't a weapon that you want to take, I'd recommend sticking with that MP18 Trench. The gun is really manageable and has a very nice hip fire. You also have a 4-bullet kill up to 12 meters, and the fire rate is still a competitive 550 rounds per minute. In terms of shotguns, you can't go wrong with the Model 10A Hunter. There's a bit of gameplay of that in the background. It's an absolute beast, but, you know, some people don't like using shotguns and they prefer to have a machine gun. If that's the case, Hel Regal or MP18 Trench are my picks. Now a quick look at the support class. Now this was a weird one for me because I don't really use the support class all that much, and when I am using it, I'm not really paying attention to whether it's a vanilla gun or a DLC gun because I'm obviously playing it after the DLCs come out and I don't really play the weapons as soon as they appear. That being said, I have been stuck with the Parabellum and LMG for a while now. Both guns are really good, but of course are DLC weapons, so you're going to be wanting to hear something that supports a weapon from the vanilla section of the game. Now for me, I would recommend either the Madsen or the Bar. Let's start off with the Madsen. I run with the trench variants for close-up run and gun aggressive support play. If you are looking for a more passive bipod approach, you'd be better off taking a Lewis gun or something else entirely. As I never sit back and bipod, I'm going to focus on the close-up stuff. When looking at the Madsen variant, you have some decisions to make. As I said, I enjoy using the trench variant as I get the advantage of nice hipfire spread whilst the recoil is still manageable. If you don't hipfire at all and you're always aiming down sights, you could go for the Storm and benefit from easier to control recoil, both in terms of vertical and horizontal. You'll get a 4-bullet kill up to 12 meters no matter what variant you take, a 5-bullet kill maximum from then on, meaning no more than 5 bullets are required to kill an enemy at any range, 540 rounds per minute fire rate, 4.2 second reload when empty, and a 2.65 second reload when bullets remain. That's fairly quick. And with a 30 round magazine, you will need to reload a fair bit if you mag dump, but for normal run and gun stuff, you'll be perfectly okay. As I mentioned, there is an alternative that I really enjoy to the Madsen, and you can also see gameplay of this in the background. I am of course talking about the BAR. This has long been a favourite of mine and is certainly not a bad choice when looking for a decent close range weapon in the support class. When comparing the trench variants of the Madsen and the BAR, the Madsen does benefit from a larger mag and less vertical recoil, whilst the Bar has less horizontal recoil, a much faster reload, and of course, nothing obstructing your view. I would say that's the biggest thing holding back the Madsen. You have this very obtrusive magazine that covers part of your screen. It's not really that great when you're trying to pick out enemies and track them, although that being said, you can get around it and you do get used to it. So I think it's a bit of personal preference. Some people just do not like the gun, but you can't deny that the stats are really, really strong with the Madsen. Finally, we'll jump onto the Scout class. This one will be very quick indeed. The SMLE Mark III Marksman is incredibly strong. It's quite a weird one, as when sniping it's often down to personal preference, but when looking at the amount of players that use the weapons in the vanilla portion of the game, the SMLE is by far the strongest and most used. That being said, the SMLE is not my personal choice. I really do enjoy the Gewehr M95 from the vanilla Scout weapons. However, for most people, the SMLE Marksman is their go-to choice. 10 rounds, a really solid sweet spot range, and just general ease of use makes the SMLE the best in class for the vanilla weapons. In fact, until the Ross got released in the Apocalypse update, I think it was by far the most popular Scout weapon and wasn't even being challenged by any other weapon. The Ross is quite similar to the SMLE and similar to the Gewehr M95, it's like a mixture of them both together. So I think the Ross is overtaking them, but of course it's a DLC weapon, so we can't really include it in this video. Hopefully this helped you. That is at least 4 weapons, at least 1 for each class, so you should be perfectly fine if you don't have access to the DLC and just struggling to put together a loadout. I would say that some of the DLC contains weapons that are really, really strong. For example, the RSC is a very, very good medic weapon, the Parabellum and LMG are very good in the support class, and as I mentioned before, the Ross is superb for the Scout class, and then you got the SMG-08 for the Assault class. Loads of weapons. So I would suggest if you're looking for the best loadout, you might have to dip into the DLC, which is a shame because I really prefer it when the vanilla section of the game has the most powerful weapons, and then the DLC has more interesting ones that aren't necessarily pay to win, but you know what I'm getting at. You can still have a good game if you're playing with just the vanilla section of the game, and this video will help you do that. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next video.